What's up, guys? This is Jan for Chess24, second day in the Grand Chess Tour event in Paris. And that means 3 more rounds of rapid chess featuring most of the world's best players. The first day was dominated by the world champion Magnus Carlsen and maybe his closest rival these days, Wesley So, who's been winning a bunch of super tournaments recently. And as the pairings would have it, these two would meet in round number 4, the first game of day number 2. Here we see Wesley So with the white pieces against the world champion with the black pieces. We'll have a look at their encounter and then at some other highlights. Let's jump right into the action. And we can see that out of the opening, Carlsen gets a good position with the black pieces, something he has not accomplished regularly recently against the Italian. This time he gets a good position, the pawn on d3 is weak, and So decides to throw caution to the winds, goes rook to a1 instead of going for passive defense like bishop e3 or bishop c1. He goes for active counterplay, but that means that the d3 pawn sleeps with the fishes, can't hang on to it. So goes for rook a6, trying to organize counterplay against the c6 knight. Rook e6 covers it so that you can take on d3, and queen a4, hoping for trickery after queen takes d3. But Carlsen is not easily bluffed. He takes that pawn and had So follow through with knight c7, which I thought was his point, hitting c6 and e6. There was a spectacular line that Carlsen could have gone for. Not forced, but it's very nice, so I'll show it to you. Knight to d4, knight takes e6, knight takes f3 check, g takes f3, queen takes d2, knight takes d8, queen takes e1, king to g2. And it seems like white has emerged and exchange up, but the line is not finished. Black goes knight to h5, and it turns out that the famous queen-knight combo will checkmate the white king. This would continue a bit, but trust me, there is no defense here for white. Or trust my computer, don't trust me. And this wouldn't work. I'm not sure if both players saw that, but So decided to not go knight c7, but instead mix it up even further with bishop takes h6 tactics. If this bishop has to give his life anyway, why not grab a pawn and, more importantly, remove the defender of the f6 knight, so that maybe there is something to be taken later on. Now he goes knight c7, and Carlsen goes for the same idea with knight to d4. The computer says this time around rook d6, rook c6, e4 was more clinical, when black remains much better. But Carlsen goes for knight d4, and Wesley So decides to take on d4. Rook takes a6, queen takes a6, and now we see the consequences of bishop h6. The knight on f6 is hanging, therefore Carlsen can't just recapture on d4 if he wants to win material. But instead, he has to try to move rook to d6, attacking the queen and defending his knight. So plays the only move, knight to c6, but he has to self-pin. That's, of course, not a thing anybody likes to do. Carlsen keeps pushing with queen f5, threatening queen d7. The black position remains much better. But So is not done with the game. Oh, I should mention that rook e5 runs into checkmate. Rook to d1 check, king h2, queen f4 would be a pleasant way to end the game. Instead, Wesley So tries knight to d5, queen to e6. Looks like this knight will fall and game over, but not quite yet. Queen a8, rook takes c6, captures a knight, and probably Carlsen thought that So's idea was knight e7 check, when you can't take with the bishop, but you can take with the queen, and after queen c6, e4, the 2 black minor pieces should be much stronger than the white rook, so black should win this. Of course, both players understand that, therefore So goes for the much trickier rook to e3, threatening rook g3 check, and all of a sudden it's not so easy what black should do. According to the computer, the best solution is knight h5, ruling out this rook g3 check, and after knight e7, queen e7, black is still better. But Carlsen thinks he spotted an even better solution. He goes for knight to e8, breaking the connection between the queen and the bishop on f8, so there's no more knight e7 to worry about. And after rook g3 check, which happened in the game, black can just go king h7. And here, the game lasted a little longer, but black is a piece up and went on to win comfortably after rook f3, e4. Carlsen went on to win. So what chance did Wesley have here? You can pause the video, think about it, or just watch me blitz it out. Knight f6 check is the solution. And surprisingly, all the tactics work for white. Knight takes f6, rook g3 check. This bishop is pinned. after king h7, queen f8 will cost a lot of material to stop being checkmated on g7 or g8. Queen takes f6 is better, but still queen takes e8, and there is no way to parry the threat of rook g3 without losing the f8 bishop, so that's bad news as well. Probably the best move is king h8, but first of all, who does that? And secondly, both rook g3 here or the immediate queen takes e8 win the piece back. Wesley would have absolutely nothing to worry about, so he missed one big chance there, but of course, the chance was granted by Carlsen by going knight to e8. Still, Carlsen wins the battle between the two leaders and was not done winning games in his next game against Vasyl Topalov. He played a typical Carlsen attack without big sacrifices, just putting his pieces on good squares. Tier after rook e8. Topalov missed his chance to stay in the game by playing rook d1 check, king g2. Rook takes e8, rook takes e8, and queen to d3 with serious counterplay, playing queen f1 check. Things aren't easy for white. After rook d1, if you go king h2, you can do the same thing. Takes, queen d3, and even without check, the threat is strong enough. Instead, Topalov wants to implement that idea in a different way. Goes rook takes e8, and queen b1 check, king to h2. He thinks he has time to go queen f1, planning both rook to d1 and queen takes f2. But he had missed one little but terribly strong move, which surprisingly wins the game here and now. The move bishop to e1. Doesn't look very active, but it does everything you could ask from one move. It covers f2. It stops rook d1 because the queen would take it, and white has a free hand to go for queen c8, planning his own attack. Topalov tries king g7, and Carlsen reacts well with queen to f3, covers f2 and attacks d5, renewing the idea of going bishop c3 and doing bad things to the black king. Topalov just resigned because there is no defense to this bishop re-entering the battle, his king being mated. Last game of the day was tougher for Carlsen. He was much worse, or worse at least, against Hikaru Nakamura for most of the game, but defended very well. Went on to draw that game and maintain his lead in the tournament. Let's have a look at the standings and then look at some more highlights from the second day. In the standings we can see Carlsen with 10 out of 12. That means 5 out of 6, but since you get 2 wins, 2 points for a win in the rapid portion, it is counted as 10 out of 12. Nakamura only 1 point behind. Then Shakhmatyarov another point behind. The top 3 in the rapid world rankings are also leading this tournament. Then from the midfielders, I always enjoy all the games, but the ones of Alexander Grishuk had especially a lot of up and downs in this second round. Let's see 2 examples, and let's start with the downs, and that is his game against Hikaru Nakamura, where Grishuk got a very, very good position, but Nakamura, tenacious as ever, managed to win this position with black. Grishuk could have, probably should have, played something like this, when I believe that white should be able to convert his extra pawn, at least. It's very unlikely he would lose this. But instead, Grishuk went bishop e6, and all of a sudden after bishop d3, the d4 pawn falls, and the position is double-edged. Grishuk decides to activate his rook quickly, but all of a sudden, black has this passed pawn, the white pieces don't coordinate so well anymore, and Grishuk had to switch to defense already. Bunch of moves later, they would reach an endgame that Grishuk is quite familiar with. He, I believe, lost this to another American during a past Olympiad, to Gatakamsky, and once again he would go on to lose this endgame. It's a theoretical draw, but it's very tough to defend in practice, especially with limited time, with the 25 minutes and 10 seconds delay they use. In Paris, Grishuk did not manage, and another 20 moves later was checkmated by Hikaru Nakamura, or almost checkmated. Rook h6 check is coming, or king takes e8. So Grishuk had to resign. That was a tough one to swallow, but he got at least half a point back by World Championship finalist Sergei Karyakin, who in this position, after being better himself for most of the game, in this position Karyakin could play bishop g4 and nothing much is happening. The game should end peacefully, but instead Karyakin went for bishop f3, which would be a good move if not for the fact that rook takes h4 picks up the queen. Well, rook h4 would be pretty good even if white was allowed to go gh, but that is not a legal move because of the pin. So it wins pretty much the whole queen, and of course Karjakin decided to resign immediately. So yeah, good and bad games or good and bad results for Alexander Grischuk. In the standings at the bottom we see Etienne Bacrot and Fabiano Caruana. Especially Fabiano Caruana will not be thrilled about his performance. Here we see the US superstar who has one draw and lost all his other games out of 6 games, and yet lots of good positions. One example was his direct encounter with the other tailender Etienne Bacrot, where Fabiano went for queen f5 here, rook to d8. Looks like white is doing well, and the computer says white should think about b6, ab, a7, and pass pawn on the 7th rank would be a serious distraction for black, trying to organize any kind of attack. White would be better. But Caruana instead played the natural enough move, queen takes e5, hoping to set up a battery on this long diagonal. However, he would not have the time. As we know, with opposite colored bishops, the initiative is very important. So can you spot how Bacrot won the game here? Pause the video, think about it. Or don't. Queen to g4 is the answer, with a bunch of threats that can't be parried all at the same time. Rook d1 check would be checkmate in 2 moves. Knight h3 check would also be checkmate, but would also pick up the rook. There's just nothing you can do about it. Try for yourself. There is no defense. Caruana tried h4, making a luft for the king on h2. But the problem is that this knight just picked up the rook. The queen defends the g7 pawn as well to add insult to injury, so you can't even think of tricks against g7. And the game would end fairly soon. Very tough day at the office for Fabiano Caruana. Not quite sure what's going on, but yeah, not a great score for him. However, there is still a lot of chess yet to be played because they have one more day of Rapid and then 18 games of Blitz, so a lot can still happen. So far, Magnus Carlsen in the lead, followed by a man who is always a force to be reckoned with, Hikaru Nakamura. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope I'll see you in the next one, or you can follow the event live, of course, on Chess24. See you guys there. Bye. Hang on, I should go to full screen, right? Big professional, yeah.